place, a lovely meadow in the heart of Devon. The date, Monday, the 29th of May. And the time, 8 o'clock. Which can only mean one thing. I'm late for the start of Springwatch. Oh, Kate, hang on. No, you can't do it without me. You can't, you know you don't. Oh, for heaven's sake, we're only acting. Don't be silly. Oh, how soon we forget. Right, well, it's been a year, and there's two people here, I think I can speak for both of us, who are absolutely thrilled to be back. I think there's lots of other people here, the cameramen. Go on, have a look at one another.
Yeah, have a look.
Have a look at one another. Go on, switch it down. There you are. Show us the technicians. They won't, they're shy. They're all back, glad to be back, but most of all, I hope there are several million of you lot out there who are equally glad that we're back. Well, at least they're glad that some of our animals are back. One of the things, actually, we can guarantee is that this spring is absolutely nothing like last spring, is it?
So couldn't have been more different.
No, and you'll see that as we go along. But there are a few things that are consistent, and one of them rather touches my heart. It's not this. This is the furry equivalent, because a few weeks ago we heard this lovely song. Sing into the mic. Right? And if you were watching last year, and even if you weren't actually, and by the way, welcome to newcomers, over there in the little barn was a pair of swallows on their nest, and I think if we go inside, there she is. And we're pretty sure that that is the same pair of swallows. You know, just have a think about that. Those birds have just flown back from South Africa, and they've made it, and they're back in our barn,
yeah,
ready
they
to
were
star
more
on
on
the
time
telly.
than you were.
Oh, sorry, OK.
We've also got cameras all over the farm. Again, we've got a whole host of characters to bring you live. Have a look at this. This is a jackdaw chick, possibly the most indulged chick on the farm so far this year. Both parents feeding it. Well, actually, it does look like one of them's feeding, the other one's taking it away. But we'll be obviously following the fortunes of that chick. And new this year, we've got cameras not just around the farm, but around the country. Have a look at this. This is a red kite family. They are in the East Midlands, and we will be looking at pictures live from the East Midlands and other parts of the country throughout the series.
And we have a veritable cornucopia of wildlife. Yes, I know. Well, I think they're ready for that, you know. And let's have a little musical interlude and have a look at some of the stars you will get to know during the next 3 weeks, as well as us.
We are going to have so much fun.
Are we?
Yes.
Good. I'm cold, as a matter of fact. It's extremely cold. Of course, involvement is the big theme this year. Last year, global warming. I don't know about that, because it is freezing right now, but we want to get people really, really involved. We've already got you involved. We know that much, because we've had something like getting on for 100,000 people respond to our Springwatch survey. More about that later on, but...
And we also have lots and lots of ways and suggestions for you to how to make your lives just that little bit wilder.
Oh, wilder,
I know,
eh?
so keep watching for those. But first, one of the best ways to make your life wild is to include Simon King in it. And here he is.
It is absolutely wonderful to be back with Springwatch, and especially for me here in Shetland. This is as far north as you can get in the British Isles. It's wild, it's windy, but I can assure you the wildlife here is absolutely astonishing. Over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be travelling all over the Shetland Isles, looking at various seabirds, especially puffins, our favourites of course. We'll catch up with common seals, who we hope will be pupping whilst we're here. The newborns are just beautiful. Lots of lovely birds, including red-throated divers. They're one of my favourites. Can't ignore the locals, Shetland ponies, but this week especially we're concentrating on the shyest and most elusive of British mammals, otters.
Right, and the barn, which, of course, the BBC have probably made over completely since, like, no expense
Will we
spared.
recognise it? Yes, following
Good
up.
Lord, what a transformation. No, it's every bit as grotty as it... Oh, look at this, that's nice.
Oh, look, though, hot chocolates.
We've already hot foot from Shetland there. I wonder if Simon's learnt the accent because... Oh, shush, that's enough, fine. Learnt the accent yet, because it's certainly not Scottish up there. It's much more like Norwegian. So I will test him on that later on. You know, what the traitor coming to Simon King up in Shetland? That's what it's like. We'll try it later.
But first, let's have a look at some of the live footage that we've got. And this is a box with blue tits.
No
in.
Springwatch programme would be complete without our blue tits. Now, this year, we've got not one, but two families of blue tits, both of which are looking incredibly healthy and also very, very tiny. This is actually coming to us live right now. We've christened this lot, I think, if you don't mind, the Humble family, aren't we? The Humble Tits.
Well, we have, because someone pointed out that their nest was a little bit scruffy and it seemed to be made out of an awful lot of hair. So,
That's
yes.
all right, I don't mind, you know. I mean, I think basically a bird makes its nest out of whatever is available. And it seems to me this nest, which is in the garden up here, I think you've got dog hair, horse hair or something like that, and it's perfectly comfortable. We've got little white mouse. Oh, thank you, just cut off at the vital moment. How many little white mice? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something
seven
like
in
that.
there, possibly.
Yeah.
But they are, as Bill said, very, very tiny. This is probably the youngest we've ever seen them. The last ones hatched over the weekend. So the great thing is that we really will be following their fortunes all the way through the series.
From
and not
egg
just
to
theirs.
fledging with a bit of luck.
Indeed.
Can we have a look at the other one? Because this is more in the woods, a rather more verdant setting. These are the... I'm going to christen these the Moss family in sort of tribute to Stephen, who used to be my producer.
Oh, that's very
till he
sweet of you.
defected to Alan Titchmarsh. But that's his loss, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, so we're equally good family. We've got the parents coming in, constantly cleaning it out. So we have the Moss family blue tits, and we have the Humble family blue tits. And I think with any luck, they are both going to survive. I'm going to predict that, because last year it was a bit sad,
Last year,
wasn't it?
I had a bit of a tough year with my family. What we should do, we've got that lovely footage of your Moss family mum making the...
Exactly.
collecting moss.
That's down by the feeder area. We've got that little rustic pond or bird bath, and there she is gathering the moss from there. And I think that's all it is. You see, that just happens to be close to where she's nesting, so a great
But she
big
has
mouth.
done a beautiful job. It is a stunning, stunning nest, isn't it? It looks really comfortable.
It does, but I personally think it's all surface. You know, it's just because it's nicely decorated, but I don't think it's any more comfortable than the Humble nest at the top there. There's room for all styles. They like green, they like brown. You know, that's the way it is. And look, they're all perfectly happy, and they're because it's very cold. It is very cold, so the parents, and there are two parents, both very active, are actually sitting on those youngsters, keeping them warm. And I wish they were sitting on me, because I'm chilly as well.
Now, we've got lots of new things, as I said, not just on the farm, but around the country. We showed you the red kites just a little bit earlier, Bill, I need your help on this one. Could you just strip quickly? Stand up.
I'm sorry.
I think. Just
I
show
do
it in your
apologise
full
for this.
glory.
Can you stand up like this?
Yes, OK, so...
Am I reduced to this? The BBC budget is
Pull
so
your shirt
small.
down a little bit. Go on.
What?
You're wrinkled, love.
That's
better.
What
Better.
wrinkles? Oh, there.
That's
Is that
lovely.
okay?
Yeah,
That's
no,
better.
OK.
Inside
So,
the paunch, actually.
red kites were roughly There.
No idea where
in
they
the
are.
East Midlands.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, about there.
There, yeah.
All the way down.
Yeah.
Here.
Not all the way down,
No, but
ladies and gentlemen.
just
quite-
far enough down,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
down there, are the Lost Gardens of Heligan.
How do you know if they're lost?
We've actually just found them. But the Lost Gardens of Heligan are down there. And have a look at this. This is a cottage on the estate. And in the
What's it
loft of that cottage is a colony of pipistrelle bats. There's the loft.
And we're hoping that, well, they're actually going to have youngsters. This is what they call a maternal roost, which means all these little bats are females, and the males are off having done whatever they had to do to get the females pregnant. And there's a very good chance that in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will actually see live baby bats, and that really is something special. They actually call them pups, don't they?
I know, which
So,
is sort of-
hey, and these are pipistrelle bats,
Yeah.
which they call them colloquially pips. So these will be pip pups. Exactly. And don't you look forward to that?
This is the live picture from
Very
the...
good.
I think they're competing with the badgers. More of those a little bit later.
that's typical.
Let's go and have a look at the Great
Great
Tit
Tit
family. And it really is living up to its name. This is a great family.
How many?
There
Oh,
they
look
are.
at that. How many? 1, 2...
I think there's-
oh, good
are
top
there-
shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8?
They look pretty ready to go, though, Bill.
I think those will be going any minute, but we can absolutely guarantee that we will capture the moment because our cameras are here all the time. There's the live pictures and there are recorded pictures all the way through the day. So when these youngsters actually leave the nest, then we will capture that moment when they go out into the big wide world any minute now. Any day now, anyway.
Now, go and look at your favourites.
What?
You know you want to.
Oh, yes, please, the swallows again. Oh, can I get my thing? I'm going to give you the sound effects there. There you go.
See if she
Look,
notices.
she notices. It's my husband. It's
Now,
my
is
husband.
that the female brooding, do you think?
I think so. The only way you can tell is the length of the streamers, and I know they look pretty long there. No, I think that might be the male. Because the length of the streamers on the tail there are even longer in the male. But both these, I noticed, male and female, are looking very, very spruce, and they, at this point, have very long streamers, which, of course, gives them that wonderful aerodynamic thing. You know, that's a bird. I can't get over this every flipping time I see them in spring. You know, it's flown from South Africa, it's gone over the desert, probably went over the Sahara, over the sea. It's fantastic.
And they were working hard this weekend, weren't they?
Well, they were, because last time when we were down last week rehearsing and there were 5 eggs in there, and then she got a bit edgy here. There you go. Oh, there's a turnover there. Yes, this is the female coming on. And you can see she's trying to get comfy, but I think, careful.
There's something underneath.
Yeah, I've gone into a sensitive area, I should imagine. And she comes off the nest here and reveals, there it is.
Oh, look at that.
And believe you me, if you've got a little beak like that, you know what I mean.
They are too tiny at the moment to find out quite how many are there. So that's
Yeah.
something that we'll
Well,
be
I could see at
discovering
least
over
3
the next
there.
few days.
I can't tell.
as
Is
they
that
get
live
bigger.
again? It's
No,
coming
this
back.
this is still...
Is it? I don't know, because they were flitting in and out whilst we were standing outside. I don't know if you noticed them. They're skimming over the meadow just outside, you know. So they've suddenly gone from sitting on the nest to, whoa, better get feeding, and they are swooping around, coming back with lots of flies. They're doing quite well considering it's cold.
Stand up again very quickly.
Oh,
Just
flipping
quickly.
heck.
Right, go on.
Yeah.
Now,
What do you want to show? Where Simon is?
Where Simon is,
All right,
yes.
okay.
That's it.
Okay.
So...
Geography lesson. Just between my nipples, basically, is Scotland, and then go up.
I'm sure Scotland's delighted about that.
I'm sure they are. It's a lovely place. I can't do this. It's a mirror image.
No,
Can you
look, here we
point
are.
out Orkney.
There's Orkney there.
Point out Orkney.
There, and
Point out Orkney.
there's Orkney.
Where's
There.
Orkney?
And
Yeah.
there's Fair Isle,
Fair
where you can
Isle,
get your
yes.
nice knitted jumpers.
Yes.
And there is Simon King.
Why did you squeak then? She went all squeaky. Oh, we're going up the shit.
Welcome back to the far north of the British Isles, up here in Shetland, where, as I mentioned earlier, we've been keeping a lookout for otters. We've got live cameras trained on the coast. It's pretty choppy, the water at the moment, so it's hard to spot them. But you never know, anything could turn up. Now, why have we come all the way up here to look for otters when, after all, there are wild otters all over Britain? Well, Shetland is fantastic for a number of reasons. First of all, we are so far north, it just doesn't get dark here. We're on about the same latitude as southern Greenland here, so even at midnight, through late spring, early summer. You can read a newspaper, so there's plenty of otter watching time. Add to that, there's about 3,000 miles of coastline here. All the fjords and digs and cuts into the coastline make for the most magnificent otter habitat. There's a fantastic population of otters here too, one of the best in the British Isles, a very significant, in fact, an internationally significant population of otters. So all in all, it doesn't get any better, but they're still shy, they're still elusive, and they're pretty tricky to spot. Having said that, we have been here for a little while already, and with tremendous help from local knowledge and the extraordinary skills of cameramen John Aitchison and Charlie Hamilton-James, we've managed to catch up with a couple of otter families already, and let me introduce you to them now. The first family that we've been concentrating on is Flo. The Flo is the female in the foreground there, that's the adult female, and she has 2 well-grown cubs. Flo is 5 years old, her cubs are about 18 months old, and that means they're just at the point of leaving her. They're big now, but they still depend on her a tremendous amount for food. They're going to have a very steep learning curve in the near future when they do finally separate away. But right now they're an incredibly close-knit family, an absolute joy to watch. They spend a tremendous amount of time on a little island just offshore, and that gives us the opportunity to watch them behaving in this completely calm and peaceful manner. Those cubs can hunt for themselves, they're getting better every day, but just next door, that's the wee island where Flo and her cubs were, just to the right-hand side is her neighbour that we've called Ebb. Now, Ebb is a younger female, but she's Flo's half-sister. That's Ebb. And just behind her... Now, hang on, that's Ebb's cub. And just behind her is... Now, other way around. It's terribly confusing with otters at this stage. Ebb is younger, about 3 years old, and she has an 11-month-old cub. They're very, very close, but that youngster is even more dependent on her mum, because learning the skills to hunt and to survive really are pretty tricky for any otter. And that's not all. They're not the only otters we've been watching the whole time. There is one male that uses the whole of the coastline between the two. Let me show you Buster, as we've named him. Now, Buster, as I say, patrols the coastline. He's a big fella. He's at least 4 years old, and he's the father of all those cubs, even though Flo and Ebb are half-sisters, a little bit saucy, but that's perfectly normal in otter society. This is his domain, and he constantly moves about, scent marking, checking for what signs there may be of any other otters in the area, whether it's his females or perhaps intruding males. He's a great character, but quite a loner. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of him throughout the course of the rest of the week. Well, we've been watching, as I say, both Flo, Ebb, and of course Buster for a few days already. We'll keep an eye out on the coastline, but right now that's just about all we have time for up here. Now back down to Devon and to Kate.
Thank you, Simon. Now, the osprey has almost mythical status in Britain, a magnificent, graceful hunter that was almost wiped out by human hunters who were just as bit ruthless and efficient. Now, it should have been curtains for the osprey, but like all great performers, they made a comeback. Here's Bill with their story.
Of course, we in Britain think of the osprey as a very rare bird. But in world terms, it really isn't. It's positively ubiquitous. They're just about everywhere. But in Britain, well, they may have been common once back in the 19th century, but the fact is, by 1916, the osprey ceased to be a breeding bird in Britain. And then nearly 40 years went by until, and I remember this, 1954, excitement. A pair of ospreys has bred in Scotland, and they bred right here, 1954, Loch Garten. Now, This place is a veritable shrine to all things osprey. These osprey fanatics come from all over the world here. Look, they've even got their own TV station. It's Osprey Telly. Nothing else, just ospreys on it. Osprey shop. Anything your heart desires. What's going on there? I mean, what's happened with the British ospreys is maybe the most impressive conservation programme that there's ever been in Britain because, you know, back in the 50s, one pair, and the RSPB had to mount a 24-hour watch, and several times people attempted to steal the eggs. But slowly other pairs began to come in. They were attracted by locks being kept safe and less shooting, hunting and all that sort of thing. Major protection on behalf of the RSPB, until we've now arrived at a point when there's something like 200 pairs of ospreys breeding, mainly in Scotland, but a few getting down the Lake District and, you know, they're having a look at Wales and so on and so forth. So it really is a fantastic success. But this pair, the Loch Garten pair, they're like icons, as it were. They represent the whole thing. Actually, what I'd like to do is go and chat to some of the people whose job it is, it's not a job, whose pleasure it is to watch these birds. And the man in the hut today is Patrick Preston. I've got to get this in proportion for folks at home because they're probably thinking right now, I'm sorry, does he sit in this box 24 hours a day, day after day after day? But you do, don't you?
That's right. There are teams of volunteers every week, and on a rota basis, then yes, there's someone in here 24 hours a day.
And that's all night as well?
Oh yes, indeed, yeah.
I imagine when you're nodding off, and you must, it must be the sound sometimes that kind of wakes you up, isn't
Oh,
it?
it is,
Yeah.
yes, certainly. If you were in a bit of a reverie, then it brings you round.
Bit of a reverie.
Well,
What, both of you, whoever the other person
oh
is?
well, the other one's fast asleep in the back there.
Are you sure?
No.
Have romances occurred in this context?
Well, not while I've been on duty.
What is the satisfaction you get from it?
At the end of it, all being well, is 1, 2, 3 new ospreys. You do feel I was part of that.
Well, no ospreys down at the lake here, and Kate, I'm sure you would confirm this. Last year when we were down here, there were frogs and toads in there, and there were dragonflies zooming up and down. There's nothing at the moment, really, except two presenters who are ever so cold. But nevertheless, I'm prepared to whip off. Look at that. Yes. Just to show you where the ospreys are. There they are, roughly speaking. I mean, they're not actually there, but you know what I mean. You know, it's there. So the Spey Valley in the middle of Scotland is where those ospreys are. And the cameras that were originally there for surveillance, because those ospreys used to be targeted by egg collectors and so on and so forth, are bringing us live pictures right the way through the 3 weeks. So we can just have a look at those. I'll tell you a little story, because the parents of these two, and that's probably the female on the nest, she's called EJ, and the well, by the other people, not the ospreys, obviously, by the people who watch them. And her partner, the male, is Henry. Now, both these birds would have spent the winter down in Africa. People don't necessarily realise that. They go down there for the winter, they are migrants, they come back up. But EJ got back first. She got back first, and I think EJ stands for Easy Jane, because in the absence of Henry, who was just taking his time, a little bit slower, she allowed herself to be taken by at least one, if not two, other male ospreys. So when Henry eventually came back, they sort of made themselves scarce. And there are now 3 eggs, or there were 3 eggs in the nest. There's now 3 chicks in the nest, but the fact of the matter is that only one of them is definitely Henry's. So we're going to find out what's going to happen there, because he's not daft. It happened last year as well. She's a bit loose, this one, it has to be said. Last year, 3 eggs, none of them were Henry's, and he kicked them out.
Well, you'd think he'd learn, though, and be a little bit quicker off the mark this year.
I'd like to think he was just enjoying the scenery on the way up from Africa, but there you go. And I don't think he deserves that. But anyway, he's slightly punishing. Have a look at this little sequence, because this is EJ on the nest, and she's calling. Go on. I think that always surprises people. That's an adult osprey's call. It sounds more like a sort of day-old chick or something in Big Bird. And that's Henry. And basically he's saying, I'm sorry, darling, I'm looking after my feathers at the moment. Apparently I wasn't attractive enough for you. So, you know, if you want some food, you're just going to have to get it yourself. Or get one of those handsome chaps who nipped in and had their way with you. Fine, I'm not going to look after you. But eventually he does. Look, there he goes. And is he going to bring her back a fish? I think this is a little joke. There you are, darling.
Eat that.
Get your beak around that. It's a twig, yeah. This is a lovely moment there, because obviously he's still a bit concerned here. And I think, I'd like to think what he's saying is, look, get off the nest, and I will take over. He's pulling her off.
She's so studiously ignoring him. I'm not talking to you. Talk to the wing.
I don't know which that was. Yes, because the beak is not listening. Anyway, I don't know whether he's pulling her off and saying, I'll do my stint, or he's saying, eat your twig, or there's a fish under there. I'm really not sure. Anyway, more pictures from the ospreys as the weeks go by.
And pictures from our red kites too. Let's go live now to Rockingham. This is the woodland where they are nesting, and we can go and see the family now. What do you think, Bill? Probably the female.
I don't think you could possibly tell from that angle.
You can't really
you
at all.
barely tell that it's a bird.
It is. Now, we do have to say that the pictures here, this is our newest, latest technology. These pictures are being sent via the internet to us. So
I don't understand that. There's something about coming down a phone line or something.
I know. It's absolutely extraordinary. So if you think that the pictures are not quite high enough quality, we're terribly sorry, but this is the very latest technology. This family have laid 4 eggs. 3 have hatched so far, mysteriously 1 this weekend, about a week after the first 2 hatched. So there's a bit of a mystery there, but it's good news, isn't it, Bill? Because red kites, although slightly more common now, disappeared from Britain altogether.
They're getting very common. They were very much like the ospreys not many years ago. When I was first studied bird watching, I was late teens or something like that, there were only a handful of both red kites and ospreys. Ospreys came back themselves. We, man, have given a helping hand to the red kites, and they're frankly doing terribly well now. They're all over the flipping place, which is great because they're very harmless birds, you know. I think we've got a bit of footage of one of the male bringing in some stuff here.
We haven't. We're going to save that for later. We're going to save that for later, but we will, of course, be keeping you updated with the red kites. Let's go back now to the Shetland Islands and to Simon.
Welcome back to windy Shetland, but it is very, very beautiful here, where we've been scouting for our 2 otter families over the past week or so. Undoubtedly, otters are incredibly popular creatures, and of course they are very beautiful, but you've got to ask yourself, why are they so popular? Because let's face it, very few people have ever seen an otter in the wild. Now, I'm one of the lucky ones. I've spent a tremendous amount of time filming and watching otters, and as a self-confessed otterholic, I've got to tell you that for me, one of the things that make them so utterly compelling and endearing is the tremendous ease with which they move from one element to the other. They go from land to the water and back again without any problem whatsoever. Compare that to virtually every other animal on the planet, and it is quite extraordinary. I mean, even birds, we've got fulmars flying around us the whole time. There's a fulmar just here, fantastic bird on the wing. Now, you watch that fella whilst he's trying to stand on a cliff or waddle about on a ledge, and it's altogether different. His legs are set so far back, he's positively clumsy. Otters are one of the few creatures that have this fantastic ability to move seamlessly from one world to the next. And that is never more apparent than when you watch a family at play, as we did just the other day when we caught up with Flo and her cubs. Not very far away from here, on the little island where they spend a tremendous amount of time relaxing and playing. That's the 2 cubs playing. Flo is off to the right. That's the adult female just walking in the background. And that's what you might expect to see, of course. The adult not paying any attention, getting on with either resting, feeding, or checking out the territory, whilst the kids get on with a good game of rough and tumble. And my goodness, they can do that. But look at that lovely serpentine grace that they all have. But bingo, suddenly Flo gets in the middle of it all, and she's just as much a part of the game as her kids are. And that is another truly endearing trait of otters. These are bright animals. They're not happy just to sit around and do nothing. The moment that they are well fed and rested, they're up to mischief, and that includes the adults just as it does the youngsters. We are so lucky to have been given these privileged views already, and I can only imagine what we might see throughout the course of the rest of the week. We've only been here a few days, and yet these magic moments are rare indeed to see. Now, of course, you can explain away play by saying that it's useful for survival skills. Perhaps they can work out how to get a throat hold in a fight, or perhaps it's good for social skills when they come to breeding. But come on, these guys are having a good time. You can't argue with it, especially with Mum joining in. It's got to be a riot. Now, they've got very sharp teeth. I know that from bitter experience working with hand-reared otters. So those nips and bites are, well, to you or I, they'd be breaking flesh, no doubt about it. But to them, it's nothing. Pretty soon, they're all in a big heap, curling up and just enjoying themselves, probably resting just over the back of the island there. Gosh, they're charming creatures. Now, it's not just the female and the cubs that we've been following. As I mentioned earlier, we've watched the adult male in the territory. Let's catch up with Buster, who, let's face it, has got a very different attitude to life. Very much a loner. He is the only mature male in the territory. Now, I'm not saying he's not a playful character, but let's face it, he hasn't got any playmates. He has to go about business on his own. He has very little to do with family life. In fact, by and large, he's positively shunned by the adult females when they've got young cubs. So his day is spent moving around the territory, scent marking, rolling, drying and feeding. He's a big fella, so he's got quite a lot to find. He has to find about 15% of his body weight every day, especially in these chilly conditions, which he does with ease because he's very experienced. He will check the females out from time to time, but they're only going to come into season once every couple of years, so he just has to be very, very patient indeed. In the meantime, hang around the territory, make sure that nobody else is taking over. We'll be back a little bit later on here on the Shetland coastline. Now, back down to Devon.
Thank you, Simon. Oh, you just can't help smiling watching those otters, can you? But is watching wildlife good for your health? Well, according to this doctor, the best thing that you can do to cure stress is to go to the Farne Islands.
My name's Ben Burville. I'm a doctor currently working in accident and emergency. I got into medicine to try and help other people and look back on my life and think that I had helped a few people along the way, and I enjoy that. You get a lot of job satisfaction.
Does that hurt at all? Yeah. That hurts. We need to get an X-ray of your foot. Just see if there's anything being broken in here.
At the end of a long shift, you feel completely and utterly exhausted. I think any job really working in medicine has an element of stress. And accident and emergency is an area of medicine where you tend to get more stress than a lot of the other jobs. Been diving with the seals here for about 5 years. It's the largest grey seal population in the country. It's about 4,000 seals here, they estimate, at any one time. And it's very peaceful. Now, sometimes it takes a while for them to actually come in close to you. They may just come and do a sort of pass where they try to see, if you're a threat to them. And usually that's done by one of the bull seals. You might not even realise that they've come to have a look at you. Sometimes the seals will actually come up close to you, and usually that starts with maybe a nibble of your fin. They use the front of their faces to sort of test what things are made of, and their whiskers are very sensitive. And then after that, they can come up closer, You sometimes hear them making noises underwater and vocalising. They may even come in and try to see what you're made of in terms of like smelling you and maybe even mouthing you. I think it's important to show that you're respectful of them. You move slowly underwater, you're not doing anything fast, you're not doing anything that may be threatening to them. The only time really when you're going to have problems with these seals is when you don't read their threat signals. And if you get them in an area where they feel cornered, then you may have a problem. But generally, they're very gentle animals. I think you're very privileged, really. These aren't pets, they're wild animals. I never ever have any interaction that involves any food. So if they come to interact with me, it's because they're choosing to be there. They're not getting any return apart from playing. I find it exceptionally peaceful. I think to find peace with yourself in life is really quite difficult to do sometimes, and especially if you have a busy job or whatever. But to find peace with yourself is difficult, and I find that being underwater with the seals, I find that's how I find peace.
Actually, seeing that, Kate, it does strike me that sort of techniques of relaxation therapy almost are built into that. Quite seriously, because it's like one giant flotation tank,
yes,
for one thing. And I know you dive, and I'm sure you would confirm that the other thing is that you are completely absorbed on one subject, and that is whatever the wildlife is. You don't have to be in the water to do that, which is a meditation technique, So I think the stress relief of being out involved with wildlife and watching wildlife is undeniable. And basically, I've always contended that having anything to do with wildlife does you good. It does the wildlife good with a bit of luck, and it does you good too. And to that end, this weekend, there are many, many Springwatch events all over the country, which you, the viewers, and your families can go along to and get involved with wildlife. Kate will tell us a few of the things that's going on.
I will. Well, the first thing to know, they're happening on Saturdays and Sundays at all these places that you can see running along the bottom of the screen there. They're completely free. And if you went to, let's see, I've got a list here. Let's say if you went to Bedfordshire, for example, to Marston Vale, you could make giant bugs from household junk. If you went to the East Midlands, to Newstead Abbey, you could get to grips with bird poo, it says here, finding out what owls eat.
You're not selling this very well.
PC Plum is going to be in Manchester. Go to the website.
Not the PC Plum.
The very PC Plum.
So obviously...
go to the website, bbc.co.uk/Springwatch, and you will find all the details that you need to know.
There's masses of them. There's a lot more than just the ones that went across them. They're all over the country. So please do get out there, whatever the weather, get involved, learn stuff, join in, have fun, do some good. And do yourself some good, as a matter of fact.
Now, Springwatch wouldn't be Springwatch
No.
without badgers.
Absolutely.
Or, in fact, with badgers in this case. Let's go live
You
to
don't
the
know.
badger set.
They might be there.
That's hole number 1.
Yes, yes.
Let's go to hole number 2
Yes.
and
that's
hole
good.
number 3.
Oh, excellent.
Yes,
I mean, see the hole
hooray!
on
I mean,
that one.
it would just. Can you imagine if we actually saw a badger?
It
Now
would-
we'd fall off our
I'd
perch.
probably, yes, I would faint with.
So,
delight.
have we got any badgers this year? Well, unbeknownst to the badgers, our cameras were spying on them over the weekend, and look, there are indeed badgers.
This is looking pretty good, actually. I think that's an adult and 2 cubs. I think you've got an adult on the left and then the 2 cubs. Because watch, they emulate the. Oh no, I've probably got the wrong ones. No, I think that's mum at the back then. They're certainly
There's
emulating
definitely
the
a cub
otters.
leaping on an adult there.
Yeah. They're not quite as agile. No, that's an adult going off. Oh, for heaven's sake. This is probably their first journey out, actually.
Well, it probably
so
is,
it's
given
quite
how
likely,
cold
yeah.
and wet it's
Yeah,
been.
yeah.
Black and white, obviously, because those are infrared cameras so that we can see what's going on at night. And our cameras will be running all night for the next 3 weeks, so we will keep you updated with our badgers.
Yeah, and I'm sure we will see some live. It happened last year, didn't it? As it got a bit milder and, you know, we get a bit later on in the programme. Still got 1/4 Stay tuned.
Yes.
Badgers may be out last minute for the big finale. Barn owls.
Barn owls.
Now.
Yeah.
Last year, we had a very successful barn owl year, and we had this wonderful family down there. You can see there's the adult, and then you've got, I think it was 5 or 6 youngsters, all of different sizes. Let me just explain why that happens. This is one of nature's
Tiny
ways.
little one wriggling at the bottom.
Absolutely, and he's about to feed himself up, because if he doesn't, and there is a food shortage, then he will end up being eaten by his brother or sister. I know it's tough, but that is the way barn owls work. You know, this is built-in food shortage. Don't try it at home. If you're a bit peckish, don't eat the baby or anything like that, you know, your baby sister, no. But watch this, watch this. Get that down, you mate, because he's got a great, it's enormous man.
He ate so much he could barely
Trying to
stand
flatten
up.
that. But wait, yeah, let's, little time pass. There you go, he's done it.
Oh. But the great news is that all those owls survived and fledged. We never got all 5 of them on camera at once, but we did follow their fortunes after the end of the series. And look at this, I mean, it's fantastic
You've got
news.
4 of them, haven't you?
Yeah.
There was 4 there for a moment. There's another one, if I remember right, who was just sitting on the steps. Is that one on the windowsill?
I think there's one just on the left.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
Really good news, which makes this year's news ever more perplexing, really.
Yeah, it is and it isn't, because these birds depend on the supply of voles. That's what they eat, mainly voles. And voles, some years are very common and some years aren't. Last year was a good vole year, which meant it was a good barn owl year. This year is not a very good vole year, and the evidence so far is that, well, put it this way, we haven't seen a single barn owl around here, but we have got one we filmed earlier.
We have, well,
Oh, she's
down
live,
in the
actually.
lost
She's
gardens
live.
of Heligan, where the bats are, you can see this lone female barn owl. She has bred successfully the last 3 years, but seems to be alone this year.
Yeah, but that may be nature again doing the very simple thing of saying, if there's a food shortage, don't have youngsters. Hungry mouths, you know, no food, don't do it. Nature builds it in. If only we did, as they say. Anyway, it always strikes me it's quite difficult to know whether you've got a good year or a bad year when it comes to little tiny mammals, because most of them are nocturnal.
Indeed.
So we don't see them so often. And some of them are positively mysterious. Oh, yes. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all round the house, nothing is stirring, not even a mouse. On the other hand, at the bottom of the garden, there is something nasty in the woodshed. Something that lives where it's dark and dusty. Something that lurks beneath the floorboards. Something that makes many people scream with fear. It's a mouse! It's a mouse! It's a mouse! Yes, exactly. It's a mouse. Just a little mouse. Well, I said it wasn't in the house, because it's actually not a house mouse. It's not even a shed mouse. This is a wood mouse. It's a perfect place to spend the winter, especially when there's an apparently inexhaustible supply of mouse food. Or did we speak too soon? It looks as though the supplies are running out. Oh, dearie me. She'll have to go outside. But wait a minute. There's something in the air. What can that be? Spring! Yes, there's food out here and new territories. She'll be out all through the day and all through the night. But of course, being out at night can be a little risky. There's something there. It's a stoat. Fortunately, totally unaware. Just escaped by a whisker. Right then. All that's required now is... oh yes, of course. Love. And here he comes. The most handsome male wood mouse you ever did see. Oh, they're so well suited. Look at those eyes, those whiskers. Irresistible. Come back to my shed and we shall be as one. Yes, this way. Where are we going? Where do you think? The bedroom. What are we going to do there? A little bit of snuggling first and then... Exactly. And a few weeks later... the inevitable result. The patter of tiny feet. They're all over the place. And like all kids, baby mice just love to play. And like all kids, they sort of become oblivious to danger. It's a giant. Never mind. They'll learn. And they'll grow up. You see, even mice one day have to fly the coop. Well, the shed. And they can't fly. But anyway, one night, whilst Mother was sleeping soundly, this way. Be quiet. Quiet as a mouse. It's a bit frightening. Yes, but we've got to go. It's time. It is time. Wait for me. Wait for me. And me. The next morning, Mother Mouse awakes to find her babies gone. The fact is, it had to happen someday. But even mice mothers can't help worrying. It's such a big world out there, and they're so little. But then again, that's what happens in life. The fact is, wood mice have at least 6 broods each year. So she'd better get on with it, because there's still 5 more to go. Back to the shed. Darling, darling.
Welcome back to Shetland Live, where, to be honest with you, it feels like mid-afternoon. The sun's so high in the sky, it may be a bit overcast, but we've still got hours of daylight ahead of us. And accordingly, all the wildlife is still very busy around the coast. We've got cameras stationed in key positions on the coastline. Let's take a look, see if anything's showing up as we speak. Arctic tern, cracking bird, long-distance traveller that's come up here from the very far south, the Antarctic. It spends the summer here. It will breed on these islands and further north, feeding on small fish and other little creatures it finds just in the shallows of the sea. Depends absolutely on small fish, and that's one of the reasons their numbers have suffered recently up here in Shetland. But having said that, the coastline here is still incredibly rich, and one of the reasons it's so rich is that it is very cold. If I put my hand in here now, oh, I tell you, you do not want to go skinny dipping in there very often for very long. It's about 6 degrees, no more than that. But it is, as I say, very bitter, but that actually makes for a fantastically rich source of fish life. Colder the water, the more likely you are to have very large populations of low numbers of fish species. Now, if you go to tropical waters, you get exactly the opposite of that. Huge numbers of species, but relatively low numbers of them. So the otters here that we've been following over the past few weeks really do have rich pickings, and more so now than perhaps it has in the past few years when there have been shortages of fish stocks in this area. Now they're doing very well. We have been following the otters, as I say, for some time. You saw Flo a little bit earlier on in the programme. Now let's catch up with her neighbour, Ebb, and her young cub that we've been watching very closely with the help of local experts and cameramen Charlie Hamilton-James and John Aitchison. That's Ebb, the adult, bringing in a very big meal, but she's a great mum. She offers these large kills immediately to her offspring. Little cub there, about 11 months old, really does depend on these handouts. Can't quite see what that is. I think sea scorpion. Yes, sea scorpion. Now they're pretty common fish around these waters. Beautiful fish, but pretty hard work because they have very sharp spines all the way down their fins and along the edge of their body. They're not venomous, unlike the name may suggest. Young cub, as I say, depends on these nutritious big meals. It can fend for itself to a certain extent. It's able to catch crabs and small fish on its own, but it quite quickly tires, and so these extra feeds that mum offers really do help it out a lot. Razor sharp teeth. You can see it uses its molars to scissor through the flesh. But it's got to be careful it doesn't get cut itself. Those spines could make a nasty cut on the inside of the otter's mouth, and that could leave a wound that could become infected. But clearly the cub has experienced these fish before now, and it knows exactly what to do. Look at the whiskers there. Otters depend on their whiskers, their vibrissae, for finding their food. In fact, they depend on their fur full stop for survival. They're not waterproof. They have a layer of air that traps in that very fine fur that keeps them warm. But the waters here are chilly, as I've mentioned. Makes it important that they keep their fur in great condition. They suffer terribly if there's any oil spills, because immediately their waterproofing and their insulation goes. These two otters are very right, and after a good meal like this, they'll tend to get back together again and cuddle up, curl in a big ball, and go for a fantastically long snooze, either above ground if it's a nice day, but more often than not, they'll be going back to the holt, a little hole underground nearby. That's where they'll spend many hours before they get hungry, come back down again. Now that's about all we have time for here on Shetland for today. But as I say, we've got at least a couple of hours of daylight up here to go. Looks like the storm might be coming in. I don't know if I'm going to stay out all day. Must be getting dark back down there in Devon. How's it going with you guys, Bill and Kate?
It's actually quite bright, isn't it, out there?
It's still fairly bright. Those are the most fantastic images, Simon. I mean, it seems that they're being able to get so close to them. Are those otters fairly used to people, then?
No, Kate, not at all. The otters here hardly ever see human beings, particularly the ones we're concentrating on. That's why we don't want to say precisely where they are, because there are otters all over Shetland. You can come and watch the coastline anywhere, but we don't want any one group of otters to be a honeypot where everybody visits. But no, the reason we're getting such cracking views is that we're getting fantastic help from local knowledge, and we've got a crack team of cameramen, as I've mentioned, John Aitchison, who filmed what you just saw now, and Charlie Hamilton-James, who's working every morning to bring updates of the families. And it's their field skills, their knowledge of how to move around these animals that are getting us those unbelievably, well, privileged views.
Well, thank you very much, Simon. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow, and we will, of course, be back with the ebb and flow of life in the Shetlands. But first, let's go live now to our jackdaws. The chick is looking a bit exhausted.
Well, I think it's just satiated, actually, because for a minute ago, I couldn't tell whether it was one big fat chick or what the heck was going on. But now you can see, in fact, that's mum or dad jackdaw that's kind of moved back. And I think it's asleep. I hope it's asleep anyway, because it was twitching.
It is definitely twitching.
Yeah, look,
but this isn't the most active of birds, as we can show you.
No, but, you know, come on. We've had our editors down there who've been sort of complaining that this is the laziest jackdaw, saying it's lazy. It's not lazy, it's saving energy, because the situation here is there are 2 eggs there which have not hatched. This year, there seems to be a problem for the jackdaws. We don't quite know what it is, but they're not getting a lot of food, so probably those 2 eggs won't hatch, you know, because, again, it's this rule, nature will not produce mouths that cannot be fed. But we've got 1 chick there, as you can see, getting double the attention, and so that stands a very good chance of surviving. And there's no need for it to compete. You can see it does mess up the...
I mean, it is a bit like a spoilt teenager, isn't it, really? Totally overindulged and just makes its bedroom a mess and makes its mum do everything.
I suppose if you were prejudiced against only child teenagers, you could say that. I was an only child teenager and I never pooed in my bedroom like that.
I'm delighted to hear it.
Or whatever.
I'm delighted to... Moving swiftly on to the swallows before we go. Sorry, to the great tits. Let's have a look at the great tits first.
Identification's gone a bit wobbly there. They're again being fed like crazy. I don't think they'll go this evening because, frankly, it wouldn't be very sensible for the birds to go in the evening, because that's when things like cats and stoats and things come out, you know.
But might they go over the day tomorrow, do you think?
It's perfectly possible, but we can guarantee that if these great tits, and it's a fine family, do leave the nest, we will actually have the moment captured for everybody to enjoy. And it will be good, actually, because they're big fat things, and let's face it, they sometimes get virtually stuck in the hole, so it's well worth it.
Well, should we go to the swallows
now,
then?
Quick swallows.
Quick.
And she's just, or he, I can't really tell there. I think that probably is the male, actually. She's got nice long streamers there. And those youngsters, we still don't know quite how many there are, or indeed whether there's still an egg to hatch, because they're very, 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 very young, very,
we'll
very
be able to
peaceful
keep an eye on them, and so indeed will our viewers, even when we're not on air, won't they?
Absolutely, because the website, I don't know about these things, you see, an old codge like me, I don't have a computer, none of this newfangled stuff, but you can go on the website and there will be webcams beaming reality to you, real reality. We bring you realer reality than any other reality shows that I'm not going to mention that happen to be on at the time.
And if you want a truly odd night and it hasn't been odd enough for you already, go over to BBC4 after we're on air, because there'll be even more of him.
I'm not on a game.
You
ridiculous.
are. Don't forget our events, of course.
Oh, yes, events
all
this
the live
weekend.
Events.
And tomorrow's programme, we have bats.
A woman who's batty about bats.
We have
the Cairngorms, and we'll be introducing you to a brand new family. Who is it? Find out at 8. Bye.
That's it. See you tomorrow.